no one had ever attempted to write reports for people who were unfamiliar with the Urantia book and didn't have a background in science. I'm not the first one to notice that science has been catching up to the Urantia book. There are some excellent scholars in the Urantia community who have been documenting this to varying degrees over the last 25 years or so. But things have really been catching up to the Urantia book quite beautifully in the last 10 years especially. And so this is a first effort to really present this information to the world. Prior to this, everything that was really written for the in crowd, you know? And now it's gotten to a point where things have changed. The Urantia book describes geographically, physically, what is out in the universe, and goes into great detail about the physical structure of the universe, and even talks about like the density of stars and their temperatures, and really a lot of detail on this. And so the Hubble telescope has been doing wonders for the Urantia book as it increasingly brings back data that is kind of blowing up the Big Bang theory. It's at the same time bringing back data that is increasingly corroborative of information in the Urantia book. The field of genetics is also a great boon to the Urantia book, because the Urantia book talks extensively about the evolution of human society and the migration of populations around the world and how all of that stuff worked, all that stuff, you know, transpired. And so genetics is also a field where we're getting a lot of increasing degrees of corroboration. So, you know, this is the basic assertion that no other book in the world is so richly detailed in so many aspects of both science and history, and exhibits the unique pattern of having science and scholarship catch up to it. Now, it's easy to, you know, just write out those sentences and put them on a slide and put it up there. But to really reflect on that and what that means is extraordinary. Here is the evidence that's developing over time in support of that. It used to be in the first 50 years of the Urantia book, since it was published in 1955, telling people, oh yeah, I'm reading this book written by angels was, you know, a tough thing to say. You know, it would lead to things like, you're weird, you've always been weird, now we got a name for it, right? But this is now shifting the whole conversation, because science catching up to the Urantia book actually is consistent with that type of assertion, that it's got a superhuman quality of credibility to it. I want to be clear, though, that I'm not trying to say that this proves anything about the Urantia book. That science is catching up to it in various areas doesn't mean that all the rest of it is true. I'm not trying to say that. There's still lots of areas where science is incompatible with the Urantia book. So that's important to keep in mind. I'm not trying to oversell this concept, but it does have an emerging and very peculiar quality of credibility that is unique on the planet among documents. And there's a lot of value to get out of the Urantia book, no matter what a person's belief is about it. And so I definitely want to encourage you know, being open to it just on that level. You don't have to believe it to read it and get value out of it.
I think I read that the Urantia book is not really a religion, but what do most people who read the Urantia book identify themselves?
Right, I would probably classify it as a slowly emerging religion.
Okay.
The joke among Urantia book readers has been that organizing them is like trying to herd cats. It tends to attract people who, you know, are very individualistic, and it's hard to get them to, you know, move along in the same direction sometimes. And people have had a lot of concerns about institutionalized religion and the pitfalls that can come with that. And then as well, you've got this issue of, is it a religion, is it a cult? Well, gee, if we don't organize ourselves like a religion, they probably can't call us a cult, right? I mean, literally, I think, you know, culturally speaking, there have been these types of defensive mechanisms in place, and it all works together, aside from the fact that it's been hard to share, to create a very slow but steady growth over 50 years. It's translated into a lot of languages now. You know, and it's sold more books every year for the last 50 years, really unheard of in the book industry. You know, normally you sell books and then it kind of falls off, but You know, it's slowly coming along. But yes, I think the Urantia book will catch on, and I think it'll catch on because of its compelling quality of credibility. That, you know, we're not done writing reports, right? And as more years go on and more reports get written, I think eventually people will go, huh, maybe I should read that book.